Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of VR Download. Yes, this is one of our live shows that we do each week. We do two a week. This first episode that we do in the week on Mondays is live in the Upload Virtual Studios. We deal with industry news and updates, and we don't talk about games really. I mean, not what we're playing and anything like that. So if you're in the chat right now on YouTube, hello, you are live, so we will be looking at your comments as we go along through our conversation today. I'm Kyle, the host, and with me today, as usual.
Hello, Ian Hamilton here. I am sorry, I did not mean to throw this video up. I leaned into the tablet and activated the video here. So that is no reason for us to put that up. That's from the game show. Oh well.
Yeah, well, it just demonstrates all of our cool new features here. We have the ability to cast photos and videos up onto Stevie, the TV. And our tablets here have gotten a little bit more robust recently. Lots of fun features that David Heaney has added to the virtual studio. So we are excited to continue to show off all these fun things. Ian, I think we've got enough people here. Hello, Tidal Wavy. Hello. And Traveling Man 3775. Very good. Paradise Decay. Hello. Gamertag VR. Hello. How are you? Bass Pilot, hey, gang. Yeah, all right. Okay, so what do we got here? I got plenty of people here in the chat, so don't be shy. Let us know what you think about what we're talking about. Ian, are you ready to get in? Are you still fiddling with this?
I don't know how to turn this off. Heaney, how do I turn off the video? Okay, he says the people can't see the video, so this is just a magic video that only appears to us, I guess.
Hello. Okay. All right. Well, hey, Ian, let's get into the news that we have for
This is what happens
today.
after David leaves. It all falls apart, doesn't it?
It's just all, well, without the main guy here, I mean,
man.
It just, he was like a cornerstone, and now he's gone. So we're all just kind of holding everything up as well as good as we can. Yeah. All right. Okay. Enough of that. Let's get into the news. So our first news piece of the day is there's a bunch of games that support 120 hertz on Oculus Quest 2. With the V28 software update, Oculus Quest 2 now has experimental support for a 120 hertz refresh rate. I have here in my notes, here's every game that can run at 120 hertz on Quest 2. I'm not going to list them out. Do you have the ability to do that, Ian?
I do. There's only it's adding on a periodic basis as the devs are able to get their stuff up and running. But right now it's Echo VR, Cubism, 11 Table Tennis, Racket Fury, Virtual Desktop, and then over on App Lab you can get Rhythm and Bullets. And those are the 120 hertz games right out the launch. I actually reached out to Hand Tracking Lab to see if they were able to get it up to 120, because I have the latest update. I am running this studio right now here at 120 hertz. And I went into Cubism briefly and tried it out. And it doesn't improve hand tracking, but it can make you feel like it does. That's the kind of thing you have to...
Okay.
Perceptually speaking, you're seeing more subtle movements in your fingers that you didn't perceive before, is I think the way I've been trying to comprehend how to explain this. So right now, this feels more fluid, I guess, to me, here with 120 hertz in Heaney's latest version of the studio.
Yeah, I'm jealous because I'm still stuck on V27 point blah, 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 blah. And every time I check, I refresh, and alas, no V28 from me. So I am a sad Kyle today. But that's okay, because it'll show up eventually. Everybody's like, oh, have you tried Air Link yet? Oh, have you tried 120 hertz yet? No, I haven't.
I've tried 120 hertz, I've tried Air Link, and I was even able to get the keyboard tracked in VR, and that's my favorite one that I'm going to be sort of obsessing about this week. That tracked keyboard is amazing. I mean, it's terrible right now. It like you put the keyboard down, and you start to move it, you'd like nudge it in position, and it's like maybe a second behind the little nudging for it to
Mm.
actually update the position of the keyboard. But I mean, it's better than you physically moving the keyboard from here to here and the sync up getting messed up. It's better than that. So, but it's still, it needs to have a much lower latency on updating that tracked.
I have a technical question, and I don't know whether anybody here actually has the answer or if I'm just being silly. I mean, I might be, but the 120 hertz refresh is for the screen. Did they improve on the tracking refresh?
I don't. Well, I think there's a limitation on the cameras, how quickly those refresh. And yeah,
Well,
he and I spent like 6 months ago digging through patent filings and trying to find, what sensor they're using in the IMUs of these touch controllers and what might be in the next generation. And I think that's the limiting factor there is the refresh rate of the cameras as well as the refresh rate of the IMUs and stuff inside the
I mean,
controllers.
you mentioned the subtle movements of your hands when you were doing cubism, and it feels like that wouldn't be as affected by the refresh rate of the screen as it would be as the actual refresh rate of these little cameras on the front. You know what I mean? I'm just
It's
curious.
like perceptually, like if I'm only perceiving an update every, let's take a more extreme example of like 60 hertz. If we go back to like a much lower 72, it's all this stuff is incremental, 72 up to 90 up to 120. But like if you imagine you're only seeing these updates every, that infrequently, and then you're doubling that up to 120, you're perceiving all these moments in between your finger moving where you just weren't seeing it before. And so it's like it feels smoother even if they didn't actually improve the tracking itself. It feels smoother to you because you're seeing all those little things in between that you couldn't really see before.
Yeah, I find that in my situation, I'm in my VR dungeon here, which is just like a mud room in the bottom of my house that I've commandeered for VR, and uh, it's not bright enough. So I find that when I don't have enough light, my hands are like, I'm doing that manually, by the way. But if I get more lights in here, and then I have them blasting down on me, and my tracking is much better. But I sometimes still think that my hands are like shaking unnecessarily, and I wonder. I've got one of those IR floodlights that I can use. That I might add another one of those to this room to try to
I
get more.
think
I don't know. I don't know. It's but the refresh rate, we're getting closer to it. I read somewhere that it's not. We were at 72, then we were at 90. Now they're pushing 120. At what point is this 60 hertz interpolated to 120? That like smoothness going
we
on.
were talking about that. So there's an Oculus engineer out there, Justin, I can't think of his last name, who has a tweet thread talking about Heaney just said it. What was it, Heaney? Justin Rogers, over there on Twitter, and he's got a thread talking about how it's likely to get reprojected eventually. And I think that's a feature that PlayStation has had for a couple of years to get some of that smoothness, and it sounds like Quest is probably going to move in that direction as well for some of its experiences. But yeah, it's still going to be incremental sort of thing, month after month.
Yeah. Was this the actual tweet? None of this matters if the app doesn't actually hit frame rate most of the time. Various warp technologies help, but actual frames are better. I expect advancements over time, though, where an app renders at 60 but reprojects at 120 and it feels better than, say, native 72 or 90. There are people out there who couldn't stand the Hobbit movies because they were 48 frames per second instead of 24. And
it was a nightmare. I went to one of those theaters that had it at 48, and they had all these special effects where they're throwing dishes at one another in like the first half hour of that movie, and it just looks completely unreal to see that. It's because the medium wasn't made for it. The medium wasn't made for your eyes have been programmed over all the years you've been going to see movies to sort of consume movies at 24 frames a second. uh it's complete, it's very hard to compare how this feels better and better and better the more the frame rate increases, because it's a completely different medium. But yeah, I totally hated those Hobbit movies when I saw them at the higher frame rate. Oh,
Yeah. Now at what was it? Michael Abras said 144 hertz is the magic number to hit.
Index has that experimental 144 mode. The thing that kind of that gets so interesting about this is, you when you're on a PC, it becomes, because of the way the hardware works, you've got all these different chips that you just bought off the shelf and put together in your own configuration, with maybe not enough memory, and maybe you're throwing a very high-end game at it. And so sometimes the software could be throwing at you like 72 reprojected to 144, and so you're getting a whole bunch of simulated frames, or maybe it's even going down to 60 and it's getting knocked up to 120. It's just that the moral of the story, I think, ends up going back to this idea that um, really, really well made software and clear guidelines on the hardware that you're using. Like every Quest 2 is going to be built the same from a hardware perspective, and you don't have to deal with every kind of CPU and GPU on in the
Yeah.
market causing weird performance things. And so, like many people, some people out there might have gone out there with their index and tried to put it up to 144, but they're not actually getting real 144.
Mm-hmm. Right, right. Because the software itself needs to be able to handle it. I mean, just because it can hit 120 hertz doesn't mean it always will. I mean, just go up to any VR dev out in the industry and say, "Hey, can you reduce your draw calls a little bit more in your game?" and just watch them explode, because it is really truly the hardest thing. It really is. Let's take a look here. Excuse me. It looks like we've got a few hellos. Hi, Andrew King. Hi, Luca. Hi, Pixel. Hi. Oh, I'm gonna say this wrong. Cat Yam HD. Hello. All right, and let's see, what else do we have here? Smashed Reality says, when I got a 4K TV, I couldn't stand how many little movements I could see and pores. I don't want to see pores. Hey, I feel you on that. I feel you. It's terrible when you see something that's so clear. You're like, wow, I kind of wish I couldn't see, because
Yeah,
nowadays with everything shot in 4K, you can see the makeup on people's faces, you can see the prosthetics, and around their head when they've got a wig on and there's hair, you can see a little bit of a seam nowadays. You couldn't see that back in the day, so there is some
it's
value to the lower quality
yeah, it's
sometimes.
funny to think about. Like in the Hobbit example back, it's yeah, the props start looking like props, the sets
Yeah.
start looking like sets. Whereas in VR, we want more reality out of what we're seeing. It's we it's like we want it to be more like the real world. So like increasing that makes it feel smoother. I'm curious. Yeah, James is saying that past 250 it becomes moot. I can't remember. We'll see. We'll see.
Hmm.
Like I've yet to experience what that feels like. I know there's people with crazy monitors out there experiencing some gaming at those crazy high refresh rates. I'm really curious to see when we get that in VR whether it's like.
Are you? Do you or anyone can perceive the flicker of fluorescent lights?
Mm, sometimes I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I think some people's eyes can actually see it, the flicker, and others cannot. And
I remember,
I believe that perception will mean a lot to people who are trying to do VR. If you can see that, then you are probably going to be more sensitive. And I think everybody's eyes and perception are just a little different. And so it's difficult, just like everything else, like IPD, or, the size of the straps and all that. There's an average, there's a majority, and then there's the outliers, the exceptions, not the rule. And those people, I think will slowly get folded in as things get better. Then those people will slowly have a better time.
I go back to the topic hand. I do recommend people get Cubism and try the hand tracking in Cubism at 120 if you've got the V28 update, because I think that gives you a real good sense of the difference.
Absolutely, absolutely. Do we have anything else to say about 120 hertz?
Uh, not right this minute, I think. Let us know if you've got anything else to bring up there. Yeah, it's nice to go up from 72. I kind of, when you've got a white environment, like a completely blank white environment at 72, I do notice the flicker there. So it's nice to kind of get away from that.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. All right. Well, then let's move on to the next piece of news for today. New Oculus avatars coming to PokerStars, Pro Putt, Coasters. Facebook launched its latest avatars today, but I think it was yesterday, actually, wasn't it? Yeah.
On Friday.
Oh, it was a Friday. Okay. Now with full upper bodies powered by machine learning. You can check them out today in 3 Quest apps. Now, number one, the first thing that jumps out at me, leaps out at me, is the ability to leap because there's feet. There is a full torso all the way down to the bottom.
Only when you're editing it. Only when you're. So they explained this to me. I got on the phone with Facebook Reality Labs and talked to one of their people who is managing the avatars. Mike Howard, I think, is his name. Which is confusing to me because I want to say there's like several Mike Howards that have worked at Facebook in the past. So this is a current employee with that name. Yeah, the way he explained it is that when you go in to edit these avatars, you see a full body, but you only see, from the top up when you're actually in an app because this isn't ready yet. The reason they do this is because apparently as you're going through and selecting your body shape and your body type and everything, you're able to visualize and own your relationship to that avatar more completely if you see a full body in the mirror versus just the upper half. So you kind of like, it sounds like you make a connection to your avatar more if you're customizing it with a full body avatar. But again, just to be clear, if you go into those 3 apps, and those 3 apps are PokerStars, Pro Putt, and the Roller Coasters game. I can't think of its full name right now. You will see these new avatars in those 3 apps.
Okay, well that makes sense. Now, the see, I haven't played with this yet, and so my curiosity is, now that we have actual arms, how's the inverse kinematics? How's the IK? I mean, are the elbows? Of course, you can't see it here, but are the elbows flying around like a bird, or what?
Yeah, they're using machine learning. This is the stuff that Carmack in his Q&A with Bosworth at Facebook sort of suggested are the obvious uses of artificial intelligence in VR. Is the comment was more or less no standard algorithm can go and do a good job of this sort of guessing. And I think Facebook is pretty happy with this, where they've arrived at, applying machine learning to provide the full upper body. I'm going to guess it's not going to be perfect, but I'm also going to guess that, I haven't gotten in there and tried these out yet either, but I'm going to guess it's some of the best we've seen yet. And it's not going to be too bothersome.
One of the things that I noticed right off the bat is that the body shapes allow you to it's a more robust selection to choose from. I'm pretty happy to see, because I'm not a small person myself, and so I like the idea of not all of my avatars making me look so svelte. As much as I'd love to be like that, I'm not yet. So that's pretty important to me. Now, I did notice, though, and I don't know if we can go back to that other image, it still seems like all of the avatars like to wear skinny jeans, very, very tight fitting clothing. Nothing is baggy or flowing. I don't know. I'm going to have to play around with it and do a full assessment, see if I feel like I relate to my actual avatar.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's some
So,
different body shapes here. You can
yeah, it's
see.
definitely different body shapes, but they all have these pants that go straight down to a cuff almost every
You
time.
want
And I
flowy,
personally, I'm not
flowy
a fan of those.
1960s pants? Is that what
I
you're
want
looking
some
for?
bell bottoms. There we go. Yeah. So let's
No.
start a petition that we have bell bottoms available in in Facebook avatars. I want bell bottoms. I love it. Let's see here. What are the odds that we're going to end up with the new avatars here in the studio? Have we
Pretty
talked about
high, I
that?
would guess. Pretty high,
Yeah,
I
you
would
think?
guess. So the comment that they said was the SDK is coming later this year, so that's anytime between now and the end of 2021. And with the SDK, there will be hand tracking supported with the SDK release. I would more or less expect that's when we're going to come on board. Um, I'm very anxious to try them out in here and see how it feels to
Mm-hmm.
have those elbows, like you said, and have those
Oh yeah.
shoulders. Um, and yeah, I'm extremely curious to see how that feels in here. But it won't happen, I don't think, until we get the SDK released, and that's when the hand tracking and he's done some hacking magic to get us them now, um, early.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think we got to wait around.
Oh yeah, yeah. These hands are pretty stellar as it stands. A few comments here. Smashed Reality says, "I like that the gray hair isn't white. There's never decent grays." Yes, as a person who will probably end up with not white but actually gray hair, I approve of that. Andrew King says there are flowy dresses. There you go. I'll just wear a dress. Um, and then a couple other people. Looks like Sampler 19 says that they noticed it right away too. Only skinny pants. Loose clothing requires cloth physics, and I get that, and I'm only sort of poking the bear with that. I just want options, just like everybody else does. But I do understand and appreciate the fact that
They they
cloth is
they
hard.
claim there are a quintillion options with their current setup, and
Who
I don't know how
counted
many
that?
zeros that is. I
Come
don't
on.
care. Please
I'm
don't
gonna
please don't
count. I'm
educate me
gonna
in the
check.
comments on how many zeros that is. I don't need to know.
Cake batter. Please don't waste development time on 1990s bootcut jeans. Hey, what's wrong with bootcut jeans?
I like Travelin's comment though that we need pet animals and other interactive objects. I mean, I would love to have Bogo. If I could have that little pet
Oh
alien
yeah, little
guy in
guy. Yeah,
my home, yeah, that would be much better. I would
and
love to have
then
that and have friends come over and pet my pets.
we can complain about clothing options for the animals. It just keeps going and going and going. Uh All right. So what else? Do we have anything else about the avatar system to discuss? I mean, we haven't had a chance to really dig deep into it yet. So I guess we'll
Yeah, it's
have
just
to.
those three apps. Heaney was saying that he heard some people complaining about the hands and Poker Stars, that the hands aren't quite as good as what they had before. I'm curious if that's a universal sort of reaction. I think it's interesting that you look at these three examples of Poker Stars, Pro Putt, and Coasters. That's a pretty good selection of, like, I don't know, casual experiences that you would want to have with friends in VR. Like, that's a good group of testing apps, right? You get a good swath of, like, reactions out of that. So I'm assuming it's still going to keep tweaking and evolving a little bit as they try to get closer to what they want out of their avatars.
Yeah, yeah, and don't worry, as they continue to update and improve the avatars, there will always be something that somebody can complain about, including me. So I think this is an ongoing process, and I have to applaud Facebook, Oculus for continuing to improve this because I think it is critical, and I think there's a huge group of people that it's a big detractor to not be able to make their avatars truly represent who they want to be. And so, kudos to them for doing that. Let's see here. Adam Hartzell, Facebook might be trying to force hardware upgrades from Quest 1 users. The avatars really tax the Snapdragon 835. Well, I mean, that's always been the case, right? New games come out, your hardware doesn't support it, so you have to upgrade your hardware to play the new games. I mean, that's the way it worked. I remember when Doom came out. Yes, I'm dating myself. It's I didn't have enough juice in my computer to be able to run it, so I had to get more stuff in my computer. Thus, the vicious cycle starts. I mean, the Quest One people will eventually find themselves needing to upgrade if they want to continue using if they want to continue using new features. So that's important to specify.
Yeah, this James's comment about what the life of Quest 1 and 2 will be. Yeah, that does that mean 3 years instead of 2? Um, yeah, I think that's what we're gonna need to get into that a lot with maybe Heaney here in the studio to talk about the life of these chips.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I did verify. It seems like the refurbished Quest ones are still available for sale if you're in the United States. So you can still spend $200 and go get an original Quest, or obviously $100 more and get a Quest 2, and have a longer life there with your hardware. Uh, the thing that you kind of read between the lines on some of the stuff Boz and Carmack were saying. So obviously, we published I think 5 stories last week, all told about that 45-minute conversation or so between Andrew Bosworth and John Carmack. And the big takeaways were, Quest 2 is going to be out there a while. Quest Pro isn't going to happen this year, and they want to build in features to make a VR headset maybe eat at the market for Chromebooks and tablets. So that's why you've got the track keyboard. You need to have sort of robust text entry, and I think the way Carmack put it was, we need to be as effective with a keyboard and mouse as those other devices are. If you go back, last year, the iPad Pro added really good, or iPad line added really good support for keyboard and mouse into their tablets. So it took that whole 10 years for sort of Apple tablets to get up to par with this input mechanism that everyone really wants for decades, or really is used to for decades, as an option for your input on these tablets. And here we are within 2019 was the first Quest that Facebook is already supporting, has initial support for those keyboards and mice. So they're clearly on a very serious path here with these headsets to try to get them so you can do real work inside VR. But going back to James's question here of how long the Quest 1, I would not want to be on a Quest 1 this year or next year anymore. I very much would want 120 hertz and all the other things that are more or less going to hit the Quest 2 platform first. And you're going to be left in this sort of waiting room wondering whether Quest 1 is going to get the good stuff or not, sometimes several months down the road.
So that's one mentality, and I totally respect that mentality. Then there are folks who don't always want to upgrade. They just want what they have now to just continue working, that they're content without all these additional features. I'm reminded, I have family members who have old phones, like super, super old phones. And I say, why don't you upgrade? Don't you want this? Don't you want this? Don't you want this? They don't need those features. So I think that there's a group of people out there, and maybe that's the intended audience for these refurbished Quests, is I just want VR. I can't afford to drop $400+ after tax and shipping and all of that to get something really juiced up. I need something right now. And I think the Quest 1, I think you're going to see that maintain its position on things like the Steam survey and stuff like that for quite a while. I bet 2-3 years down the road, we're still going to see a good presence.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point about Quest 1 being represented on the Steam list, because it'll be really, really fascinating to see how many Quests and Oculus Facebook headsets sit at those top several positions on the Steam list versus just knocking down every one of the other headsets. All the different Vives, Index. I'm curious how long Index can stay up there, costing as much as it does on that Steam list. I wanted to throw this up because this is the thing we should probably get into with Heaney at some point and talk about sort of the future product lines that Facebook is about to do. Zuckerberg is out there quoted as saying, you kind of need to know what your next 2 to 3 products are going to look like. And then in this talk between Carmack and Bosworth, there's this almost like competing visions for the next headset that we're likely to have out of Facebook, where Carmack is outlining, let's do everything in the Quest 2, but let's do it better. Crisper optics, more clearer optics, higher resolution, lighter weight, lower cost. Let's do all of that we've done with Quest 2. Let's just do it even better. And the assumption there is kind of no extra sensors, nothing else tacked on. Just do everything that's with Quest 2 better. And honestly, that makes a lot of sense to me. I still consider the Quest 1 to be an absolute brick, and Quest 2 is moderately improved off that. There's still a lot to go to make the Quest 2 a more comfortable device. You shouldn't have to go and get a strap right out of the box, or even a new facial interface for the people that are having facial breakout situations, because some of those early devices are making some people break out, and I even had that a little bit on my own face, where I wore it for a lot, sweated it in a lot, and then it caused a little bit of a reaction. But then here's this comment from Bosworth, where he is suggesting we want to introduce new functionality to the headset in something like a Quest Pro. And that's, I hear echoed in that comment something Zuckerberg said, where he kind of hinted that he thought eye tracking and face tracking were the big things that would be really, really, really interesting. So it doesn't seem, all that's to say, it doesn't seem unreasonable that in a very short span of time, we could see ourselves going to a Quest 2 Slim, a slimmer version of the Quest 2, as well as a Quest Pro that tacks on these facial sensors and maybe dramatically improves the hand tracking. That would be the magic I'd really like to see. Is we talked about this last time, but if they could dramatically improve the hand tracking and lower the weight of a Quest 2, then you've got this setup where the next generation after that, right? If you do that as your next 2 headsets, the next generation after that, you can go and combine all the sensors that you put into the Quest Pro with the ability to ship it without controllers. So if you can get the hand tracking so it's rock solid, this doesn't happen, and the hands are tracked no matter if you put them over each other, no matter what you do, then you could sell a headset with the touch controllers optional, sometimes several years down the road.
You mentioned in, I don't know if it was the last episode or maybe 2 episodes, we were talking about the Go, and you said that they should come out with a new version of Go that is 6-off tracked and doesn't have controllers. So now you've mentioned a Quest 2 Slim, and I wonder which is better, a Quest 2 Slim or a Go Pro. Well, no, we don't want to call it Go Pro, but a Go Deluxe maybe.
No, that's what it is. That's exactly what it would be. It's just
so they would merge the two then at that point.
There's a couple things that you don't want to market a product for 5 years and then take away its main input system. You wouldn't necessarily want to call it a Quest if it didn't come with the controllers out of the box. I don't know how many years away it is where they can sell a model of Facebook headset that doesn't have controllers, but that is the direction they're moving towards, and that clearly would probably be a Go device, a Go 2. A Go 2 could be sold with cameras on it and have hand tracking as the input system. but it needs to have that. So if they did that, they wouldn't confuse the people out there that are out there to buy Quests for gaming. It's an evolution of the original media consumption device that Facebook sold. And you don't need to have the 6DoF controllers for that media consumption experience. What they don't want to do is sell a Quest without controllers, because then you're confusing a whole lot of people out there that expected to get a great gaming device and wouldn't get that out of it.
Sony did it. Sony did it with the PSVR. It didn't have controllers. You had to buy that as a separate SKU. It was a mistake, or was it? Because look at how well it sold.
If you go... how many of those are still in use?
Okay, so here is a very interesting thing is that John Carmack recently talked about, and he very specifically used the term SKU. He said a SKU of a Quest 2 without controllers.
He didn't say Quest 2. He didn't say it's a headset.
Okay, a device. Yeah. A device. Correct. Yes. So a device, but he said a SKU, which denotes the concept that there could be another SKU for independent controllers to be purchased if you want them or if you need them. So it would almost be like, in some ways, taking a step forward, but also in some ways taking a step backwards by kind of a la carting all of the pieces. I don't know. I think there is a lot. I think he's right. I think there's value in one without controllers. I mean, I can't remember the last time I picked up my controllers.
Well, so
for this device, for this specific headset.
I just kicked my controllers down on the ground. That's nice timing. My controllers are down there just in case I need them for some reason, and I never do. That's so. Coming back to this as like on a time scale of what is Facebook going to do? Sometime next year, we're supposed to get this Apple device. Theoretically, some Apple device could hit the market sometime next year. That would make sense, really, really makes sense to me to be the timeline for Facebook to do a Quest Pro. Come out with something that packs a lot of sensors into a Facebook headset that maybe could compete with whatever Apple's going to do, feature for feature, with really maybe really great mixed reality, color cameras, facial sensors, mixed reality cameras, better hand tracking. But there's this other issue here where the hand tracking software ecosystem is super limited right now. So you can't do a lot with your hands only on a Facebook headset. And you could go download the first steps for App Lab. So you could go to App Lab and find the first steps and try out all these interactions where, like, you can have the trigger hand. And I'm even doing it here. I'm pulling my fingers in a trigger motion, and it's capturing it maybe half the time, 70% of the time. But you don't want to be holding a virtual gun in VR and have 1/3 of the trigger pulls not be recognized. So they have to improve hardware-wise that so it's captured 99% of the time or 100% of the time. And then you've got to have dozens of apps to back that up. And once you've got all those pieces, then you could release a headset that offers no controllers as an option and save money for people. And then you could add the controllers back on as an optional add-on for the people that want the great gaming experience. But it's like you got to go Quest Pro to prove it all out before you can come back to the lower end again. And that's clearly Facebook is never going to cede the low end. They're going to crush the low end for as long as they possibly can.
In the chat here, Swap and Toggle, clever name, I like that. I wonder how much the cost of the controllers by themselves would be. Now, you can purchase an additional set of touch controllers, like a new set, right? I mean, isn't that something that is
I think they're sold as one at a time, as replacements. I'd have to go see what they're priced on. Heaney might have,
So 69 each.
Yeah,
so
you double that.
Yeah,
140 140.
Yeah.
So 140 to replace the two Oculus Touch controllers, and Think about that. That's almost the full price of the refurbished Quest 1, just
Yeah.
in the controllers. So if you consider that maybe they could get down to a $200 price of a VR headset system just with no hand tracking, and then $100 or $200. That was the other thing I think Denny Unger or someone else brought up, was this idea. It might have been Carmack actually himself who said this. But if you separate the controllers from the headset itself and make the core experience around just this experience of just the headset, then maybe you could do some amazing things with the upgraded controllers. So, like, to your point of the moves are so terrible because they were such an old tech to begin with.
Yeah.
But if you are able to separate them, then maybe you could do some really amazing tech and make them more expensive for the people that want that really amazing haptic experience.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There's plenty of haptic options out there that they could incorporate into a new version of the controllers. It's pretty good. Pretty good. Okay. So I think we've exhausted that. So let's move on to our next piece of news for this week. Oculus Air Link launches for all with V28, except me because I didn't get V28. On Oculus Quest 2 and PC, Facebook's head of AR/VR says Quest 2's new Air Link features available today for everyone who has both Quest and PC V28. So, AirLink is the ability to stream gameplay to the headset wirelessly from your PC, and the PC has to be sort of beefy to be able to do it well. Um, I don't have V28 yet. I've mentioned that numerous times, and I'll say it one more time. I don't have V28 yet, and I'm a little perturbed by it because I want to play around with all this stuff. But yeah, so Airlink, Ian, what's your experience so far? Has it been?
Yeah, so I played around with it. I went into Half-Life Alyx as my first test run. It's kind of funny when you do this because you're in Quest on a standalone system, no wires, nothing needed, and then you hit this button. We've got Heaney, if you would drop our how-to link into the comments, I think that would be great. So if anyone out there does have V28, we've got instructions on our YouTube channel on exactly what you need to do to get AirLink up and running. You got to have V28 on your PC, V28 on your headset, and obviously, if you're listening to this later, anything newer than V28 should work for this. All
Should.
right, so you go in there to your menu and you pair up the headset to the PC. So you tell it, this is your VR ready PC. And then you look at the button where you would normally see Oculus Link in your menu. There's now Oculus Air Link. You click on it, and after you've done the pairing thing, it pops up, and boom, you're in your Oculus Home. You've got your dash floating in front of you, and you've got your PC VR games. And what's the very first thing most people are going to do as soon as they experience that is go open up Steam, right? You're going to go open up Steam and open up Steam VR. And it's reminiscent of running an emulator on your PC to me. Like I can't think of a good example, but like it seems you're number one, you're running this rock solid standalone experience at the very start, and then you're depending on Wi-Fi to hold out this connection to your PC, and it not everything feels exactly as good as it did when it was just standalone, completely without the PC involved. And then you're adding a second layer onto that by going and opening up the Steam home screen, and of course the Steam home is you're just looking at an empty space as far as you can see. So the performance is not too bad when you're just in the home screen, and then you're clicking on Half-Life Alyx, right? And I got a warning in the last time I did this where the Half-Life Alyx warned me you don't have enough performance to pull this off. Even though it didn't happen the previous time, this final time, it's like, just FYI, performance isn't going to be great this time. And I'm in the Jeff level, going around trying to deal with Jeff, and it's just really awkward to put this many layers in front of what a rock solid, such a good experience. But there's so many people out there that want to have that Half-Life Alyx experience that I understand wanting to remove the wire and go through these extra layers to get it.
Does
Um,
it lower the performance? Like if you're playing Half-Life, and will it jack down the performance to, like, I don't know, quarter life, maybe two-thirds,
oh,
a third life?
oh
Come on,
man,
you set me up for it,
no,
man.
no.
uh, but no,
It's just
seriously though,
weird.
does it diminish your performance to try to meet the speed of
Yeah, I
your
mean,
everything?
so again, it depends on your system. Depends on. I was doing this wireless, so I did not have a wired connection between my PC and my router, and it's set. Oculus Air Link warns you in the menu, don't do that. Facebook warns, you need to have right now a wired connection between your PC and your router. So it's yes, my performance ended up being pretty crummy, and I could even the loading screen where you see the giant map of the city
Hmm.
in between the chapters of Half-Life Alyx. You go in there, and I look over to my right, and you can see the bands of compression going off into the darkness. You can see
Oh
like
wow.
shades of black, of really black over here, just a little bit black, and you can see very very clearly separated these bands of compression. And that was just in just a menu system, not to mention just going into the actual game. As long as you're looking around like this, up and down, it's pretty solid. The moment you start to lean, move forward, walk around a room, you might notice a little bit of a more of a delay there. But again, way I tested this is not the way that Facebook recommends you test it. You will notice issues at this point. And Facebook is more or less saying in that Carmack interview last week, yeah, Guy Godin proved it. People want this, even if it's got some problems. So we're going to give it to you. That's more or
Hmm.
less the way Facebook has dropped.
It's interesting though that the specifications is you want to have a wired computer to stream to your wireless headset. I get that, but how many people? I bet it's less than 50%. I mean, I don't. I actually, that's not true. I do have one computer, but it can't stream anything. I mean, it's not going to be beefy enough to be able to stream my games. My beefy computer is upstairs, wirelessly connected. So I feel like, despite the fact that you were testing not in recommended settings, that test is still valid because I think it accurately represents what a lot of people are going to end up doing.
Yeah, and people in our comments are sort of keying in on this. Yeah, this isn't a review. This is me giving my first. I didn't follow the instructions, and to Kyle's point, this is what lots of people at home would do: is they wouldn't ensure that there's a wired connection. The point that Facebook and this this is not a review of the way this functions at this point. This is me just going in and trying to see if it works, and it did work. And the first time I tried it, it actually worked pretty well. It's still the pretty well in VR is not good enough for a lot of people. Like pretty well in VR can still make some people sick. Like that's the reviews. This is why uh, we've changed our review scale for our games 2 or 3 times over the years because this stuff develops all the time, and we have to kind of keep making sure we're accounting for all the new people coming into VR. And at this point, we're the H3 VR, hot dogs, horseshoes, and hand grenades. He's been getting messages, and even I got one of these messages from someone who was like, uh, "Why is my kid's PC stuttering along at 3 frames a second?" Instead of providing him a smooth experience with your game on the Oculus Quest. And it's like they went and got an old laptop from 2012 and tried hooking that up to this Steam game that's got super heavy physics and expected a good experience out of it. That's the average consumer. Those are the people they're selling quests to. And so it's like you have to assume that there's this huge segment of people out there that just don't read the instructions. And yeah, we've got the how-to guide. We're going to keep testing to make sure we've got a good grasp of how virtual desktop and Oculus Air Link perform in recommended conditions, and how they compare when you're right next to the router, you've done the wired connection, you have an AC or an AX router, you've done all those things that you're supposed to, and how those compare to virtual desktop. We'll get to
Yeah,
that.
there's no real value to me doing a review of how AirLink runs on my 486 SX 25 hertz with a Voodoo Banshee card from like 1997. That review doesn't do us any good. We understand that you got a beefy machine, games run better. Period. I mean, there's no argument there. More power means better performance, but not everybody has that. And so, to Ian's point, there are people buying Quest 2s that have computers that are 10 years old, and they're not going to be able to use this feature. So that feature's not for that. That's not for you. That's for people with beefier computers, or if you decide to take the option to upgrade your hardware, which is what we started off talking about earlier. So that's where we gotta have that beef. That's right, Harry. All right. What else do we have going
Daniel
on
mentioning
here?
Plutosphere. Heaney has tried out Plutosphere and compared it to virtual desktop, and that was impressive comparison right there. Because again, what we're trying to say here is that there's gamers out there who want the wireless experience just because they hate that wire so dang much, and they're willing to, and they don't get sick from stick movement. So there's people out there that don't care with the extra milliseconds that are added there. But then again, there's a lot of people out there, a very large segment, that are going to buy this thing and go, why does my head hurt after 20 minutes?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I have that conversation once a week with somebody, a family member, a friend, a business acquaintance that says, "Hey, I know you're in VR, so when am I going to stop being sick?" And I always tell them the same story. I say, "Look, the first time I got in VR, it was on a 3DOF headset with terrible potato graphics and 30 frames per second and a crappy computer running it. And I did it for 20 minutes and then took a 3-hour nap. It takes some time to get used to it, and you have to have the best performance to get the best results. So I think there's a lot of factors there, but people who are very sensitive to that slight little jitter, I always tell people, try to keep working at it and get used to it. Grow your VR legs. And I know there are people out there who don't believe in VR legs, but I grew mine. I had a
No,
heck of a time at the beginning. So
no, I disagree with him
no,
entirely. The moment you feel
okay.
sick in a VR headset, you need to come out. Don't push through that because you're going to get sick. Too many
Oh, I
people can
don't mean.
misunderstand that.
Okay, sorry. No, I don't mean to suggest that people should stay in and get sick. I mean, try again after you're not sick anymore, and you'll find that you'll be able to spend longer and longer in it. That's been my personal journey.
I just get angry. I
Well,
get mad at the hardware developers, the software developers, my
and what good
choices
does
in
that
life for
do,
choosing
Ian?
this as a career. No, yeah, I just get angry.
Just get angry. Oh, that doesn't do much. All right. What else, Ian? I felt like you had some other things you wanted to
Yeah, I wanted
discuss.
to bring this up. So, since this is sort of our trends and hardware show, I wanted to talk about this. So I've been testing this out for a couple weeks now, and I've got some thoughts. Let's go back into the images here. You've all seen this, probably if you're a Quest owner. So Anker sent me one of these to test out. So this is the charging
Pretty.
dock for the Quest 2, very perfectly set up here. And I thought this was such a neat thing because I was curious how it actually functioned when I saw that they announced it. So obviously, the controllers both charge, and the headset charges. You can see the orange indicator lights here, one for a controller, one for the other controller, and the middle one for the headset. And all three of these units are charging right now on this stand. This is sitting below my monitor right now. So this is my desk. uh, and my monitor is up here, and it's sitting snugly right underneath there. Um, and I was really curious how this functioned when Anker announced this product. Anker is obviously the company that's very well known for making the battery packs and becoming sort of the
Mm-hmm.
brand of that everyone knows when it comes to charging cords and that sort of thing. So here's how it works. This little dongle fits into the charging port of your Quest 2, and it's magnetic, slips right into the open charger slot. And then when you put that onto the dock, it connects right here. So you lay the headset down, and it just snaps into this little piece that's on the dock, snaps right in there, and as soon as you've done that, it starts charging up your Quest in this mode. Really, really interesting, cool little piece. I'd love to see more accessory makers make this product, make versions of this, because it has been uh, a huge time savings to kind of not have to think about swapping out the batteries.
So I have a couple questions. Um, question number one is: do you have the deluxe strap for this
I
headset?
don't.
Okay,
No.
if you did, it wouldn't
Yep.
support this, correct?
No, that would be a problem.
Okay.
And here's what's inside the controllers. So this is their rechargeable battery, and it's got these contacts here that touch the outer shell of the controller. So you put the shell on there. This is a replacement for the battery cover on the device. And then you put that onto the dock, and you just sit this in there, and these three contact points touch the dock. And so now you're charging both your controllers and the headset by just putting it in this dock. Very, very cool idea. The comment I want to make is it has been a little finicky on these indicator lights. So I have seen the orange indicator light on my Quest for 2 days at a time, where it should have been green and fully charged, but it's still showing
Mm.
the orange indicator light. I'll put the headset on, it'll be at 100%. It'll still show an orange indicator light in there from time to time. I had another situation where the orange lights will blink. It'll be blinking like on, and then it'll be orange, and then off, and then orange, and then off. Uh, all that's to say that yes, I've had a little bit of a sort of like an issue with getting it to sort of show me green all the time, but it was almost like an OCD complaint where uh, if I'm taking this off once a day or twice a day to go use the headset and then putting it back on there, the headset is still mostly charging, and the controllers don't run out of battery power with enough frequency for it to be an issue. So every time I've used this, I've been at full charge, even though the indicator lights have been a little bit flaky on making the contact points here between the edges of the dock and the edges of the controller. Um, so overall, it's worked great for my needs. Even though I've had problems with the indicator lights, it's still fully charged the entire time. So not a lot of complaints to be here, other than this like OCD situation of sometimes the indicator light is a little weird.
Yeah, so I guess if you are an accessory person, you have grips, you have uh, covers and extended batteries and things like that. This device is more for stock Quest too.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Do they have one for the Quest OG Quest One?
No, they just built it for
No.
the Quest 2, which seems like a good call on
Hmm.
their part since it's the new
Yeah.
product.
So this so these come with a battery, a rechargeable battery that they provide you,
Yep,
correct?
and with a new cover. And so there's the
Yeah,
new exchange cover that you swap out for the covers that are on your touch controllers.
right. So, I took months before my batteries died that came with my original controllers. I'm just wondering, do you know what the length of life that you're getting out of this battery that they're supplying you
Well, that's kind of my point. Is it kind of erases that concern. The only time battery ever comes up again is if you're going a single session with your Quest headset itself beyond what the Quest, the 2 hours or so that the Quest is supposed to be played
So my
in a single
challenge to
session.
you then, Ian, is to not charge them and see how long before you need to charge them again.
I'll get back
Inquiring
to you in a
minds
month and a
want
half.
to know.
I'll
Right?
check in
Exactly.
with you in June.
Yeah. Cool. That's cool. We look forward to it. Audience, please make sure that you remind us so that way Ian can tell. Oh boy. All right. Well, what else do we have here? A lot of comments say, "Hey, I want to thank the audience for being very chatty and active today. Very cool. I know that some of you go back and watch this later and you miss out on the live attempt to get here during a live show. It's a lot of fun. It's very lively and a fantastic audience to share this experience with. If you're watching this later, feel free to make a comment because there's plenty of comments that can probably be made. We always go back and read them later and see what people have to say. Or you could be listening to this on a podcast, an audio only podcast. And if that's the case, then hey, that's fantastic. I mean, having to look at us and seeing these wonderful avatars and the hand tracking and Stevie showing all the amazing stuff up on the screen and the interaction that Ian and I have with each other, that might not be your cup of tea. So that's fine. Audio is wonderful for that purpose. Let's see here. Well, thank you, ET2K9 now. You are also very lovely. I appreciate that. Ian, anything else that we want to?
Nothing else to say. Yeah, I was thinking about talking about David, but no one's asking about David, so he's dead to us. He's dead to you. We don't need to talk about him.
David who? Yeah.
When
David who? That's all I got to say. Check out uploadvr.com and also go to our YouTube page and check out that. We're also on the Tweeters and the Facebookses, and we're still working on getting our MySpace up. We only have one friend so far. His name's Tom. I don't know. Anyway, yeah. So check all that stuff out. Like and subscribe and all that corny YouTuber influencer stuff. And yeah, I guess that's it for today. Are we doing a show? Is there going to be a show on Thursday without he who must not be named?
There should be, but yeah, we're talking about what we're going to do with the Thursday show, and
okay,
maybe leave us with a final comment here on what we should times and what was that? Xena, yeah, Xena will be hosting. So we will
fantastic.
Have Queen Xena.
Well, she'll do better than David anyway, so that's good.
Of course she will.
That's good. Yeah.
David who again, right? I mean,
David who, right? Yeah. I guess we can start calling Heaney David now since there's not two.
We talked about that, but we're just going to leave it at Heaney because I've invested too much in calling him Heaney instead of David. Yeah. That he's always going to be Heaney. Yeah, I can't do it. It's been a couple of years.
Well, that works for me. It works for me. All right. Well, with that, we will leave you to go out into the virtual world and explore. Thank you all very much for watching or listening. We'll see you in the future.